Sigmas are some of the most composed, calm, and rational men you could meet. They're known for keeping a level head and even diffusing difficult situations. Considering his lone wolf status, not paying any mind to the expectations and judgments of society and the people in it, it's actually not surprising that he's able to always stay so centered and can always take the high road, even if that means cutting all contact with someone displaying insolence. But it's a little more complicated than that, so in today's video we're going to be sharing with you 10 ways that the Sigma male deals with rude people. Number 10. He doesn't get sucked in. When first faced with a rude reaction, the Sigma usually chooses to ignore it, at least initially. It can be dependent on who the person being rude is and how often it happens, whether it's someone he cares for or not, and while each can provoke slightly different and considered reactions later on from the Sigma, what remains consistent is the way that he doesn't allow himself to get sucked into the drama. If it's someone he isn't close to or has no reason to stay on good terms with, then he'll likely remain unresponsive and simply palm them off by removing himself from the situation. On the other hand, if it is someone close to him, then he still won't get drawn in and be reactive to their impertinence. He will let them be rude, finish their tantrum and ignore it until they've calmed down. And then, if it's required, he will rationally address the situation. Number 9. He considers the motive. The Sigma likes to consider all angles and turn over every stone before reacting to something. If he's dealing with someone being rude, he will first consider the intention of the other person and where this reaction is coming from. Is this person being rude intentionally, or are they just not aware of how they're coming across? Sometimes it's obvious, but other times it may be harder to determine. So the Sigma will usually err on the side of caution and do his best to assume, at least initially, that his aggressor doesn't mean to be rude. But he may need some more information before he decides how best to handle the situation and in moving on to the next step. He prefers to give people the benefit of the doubt, but when it's glaringly obvious that he's dealing with full-on rudeness, that can change the game. Number 8. He does some intense introspecting. If the Sigma realizes this person is indeed being rude, then he'll take a moment to step back, retreat into his mind, and try to objectively consider if there's a legitimate reason that he's on the receiving end of this rude behavior. Did he do something wrong? Or did he offend the other person in some way? Are they having a particularly rough day, so have ended up lashing out and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Is this a one-off, or is it repeated behavior? Are they jealous of him? Have there been other red flags that could explain why they're being rude? The Sigma often introspects and reflects on all the things going on around him, so he will use this skill to help him keep the situation as calm as possible, allowing him to react in the most appropriate way. Number 7. He empathizes. If it's someone he cares about, the empathetic Sigma will try to put himself in their shoes to get to the bottom of the situation and have a good understanding of what the other person is experiencing. He will always act with compassion and sensitivity and try to relate to what they're going through. This doesn't mean he's making excuses for their poor behavior, but it may help them gain a more objective perspective and get some clarity on the situation. Although that's not to say that it's absolutely warranted on some occasions, but the Sigma is not the kind of guy to sink to such a low level. The Sigma lives by the proverb, "You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar." He knows that the best outcome will always be one where he remains polite, calm, and composed, rather than hit back with reciprocated rudeness and insolence. Number 6. He considers how to handle the situation. Once he's looked objectively at all the facts and figures of the situation, including the severity and frequency of the rudeness, the supposed intent behind it, and what reaction would be in his best interest, he has to think about if it's even worthwhile for him to respond at all. Is there anything to be gained from doing so? Is there a pattern with the behavior? After reflecting carefully on these factors, he then considers what he's going to do to handle the situation moving forward. As individuals, we all have many layers, and at many times it can be difficult to understand one another's words and actions, so that's something the Sigma will always take into account. The Sigma is a complex guy himself, so it's not one size fits all when it comes to how to respond. Once the dust is settled after initially ignoring the outburst in question, he will react in one of a few ways. Number 5. He communicates directly, if he doesn't cut contact altogether. Either he won't respond at all, instead just walking away and choosing never to respond to this person again, especially if this person is more of an acquaintance or stranger, and especially if he felt like the rudeness was unjustified. Or if it's a friend he hasn't known that long, he might remain unresponsive after the fact, but leave the door open for reconciliation, allowing the other person to realize their mistake and reach out to him to apologize. And if they don't, well, that's their prerogative. If, however, it's someone he has a long-standing relationship with, deeply cares about, and who he's particularly close to with a strong bond, he may well take the decision to reach out to them. He'll meet them face to face, and in a calm tone explain why their rude behavior in that moment negatively affected him, at the same time managing to convey his unwavering respect and fondness for them. Or number 4, he hears them out. The Sigma is an expert communicator and considers his words well when he decides he has to enter into some kind of confrontational situation with someone he cares about. But it's more of an approach than a confrontation. But part of being such a great communicator isn't just thinking about how he's going to convey how he feels, but also in the way in which he hears out the other person. The Sigma by default is a great listener and knows how to actively listen, which means he not only keeps a reasonable, compassionate, and open mind while he does so, but he also observes the non-verbal messages of the other person, shows attentiveness, and then provides appropriate feedback or response. He will never interrupt. He always prefers to listen to what someone else has to say before taking the time to consider how he will reply. Number 3. Tries to diffuse the situation. A natural de-escalator of tense situations. If during the confrontation things start to get heated or the person shows distress, the Sigma will continue to stay relaxed and composed, and will continue to convey respect while maintaining focus on the crux of the issue. He'll try to calm the aggressor using neutral language and non-confrontational body language, letting his words and behavior create a comforting environment, perhaps even giving the other person some space to calm down before trying to resolve the conflict. He will address the concerns and empathize where he can. But if the situation continues to head south, and the Sigma sees that he's not getting anywhere, then he will make the decision to again set his boundaries and walk away. Then he will revisit the step of reflecting on what happened and reassessing the situation before making a further decision on what he'll do next. Number 2. He sets boundaries. As the Sigma male has tons of self-respect, he's all about setting boundaries. He is absolutely clear on what he won't accept. It's easier said than done. It can be difficult for many people to take this action, but it's so important in demonstrating your level of self-worth, and in turn, setting the example to others for how you deserve to be treated. This will not only increase the amount of respect others have for you, but also the respect you have for yourself. When dealing with rude people, whoever they are, the Sigma prefers to set an initial boundary by politely letting them know that he doesn't want to engage and will remove himself from the situation, which is the first step in drawing a firm line and making his limits understood. Plus, the ones who don't respect his boundaries aren't the kind of people he usually wants around anyway. Now, before we share our final point on how Sigma males deal with rude people, if you've made it this far and you're enjoying the content, then please help us to grow our community by liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Thank you so much, we appreciate every single one of you. And finally, on to number 1. He remains true to himself. However the situation pans out with whoever it was who demonstrated uncivil, rude, or audacious behavior towards him, ultimately the Sigma won't ever let himself feel too distressed, and he will always move on. While his feelings may be hurt in some way, he is extremely self-assured, and what he thinks about himself is not dependent on the opinions or input of other people. He knows who he is and accepts himself wholeheartedly. The Sigma has flaws just like the rest of us, but he embraces them as part of his whole self and finds ways to work on them to improve and evolve as a man and as a human being, which is what he strives to do every day. He doesn't let negative interactions affect his life and his priorities, and he knows when to just let go. We always love to hear your thoughts, so let us know how you deal with rude people in the comments section down below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll be notified of all our future uploads. That's all for this one, and I'll see you next time.